Hi.
Hi.
Hi. We decided to do a joint video today. Uh, Allison recently posted a vulnerable video about wanting to reach out to me because of some insecurities, and that led to us having a meeting yesterday. And a part of that meeting was that, yeah, we wanted to start creating more things together. And so we were just coming up with some ideas and trying to think of topic titles and fun things to talk about. So I just came up with, what about how I get away with calling you a brat? And we could talk about that. And that could be fun and
Yeah.
insightful. So, yeah. One of the main things that started happening in the beginning of the relationship is that there was this, like, any time that maybe I needed some space, I felt like I would receive this, like, oh, I guess that means you don't love me anymore. Or like I would say something, I'd be like, hey, I think can your dog not poop on my carpet? And she'd be like, oh, so you don't love him? And like it would, and I was like, this feels kind of like a large reaction to something that doesn't seem to fit. And so anytime that happens, my mind immediately goes to trigger response. Like something is happening here that I could do well to pay attention to. And the way that I experience my relationship and most of my relationships, just in general, like even not Allison, is that I'm agreeing to take some ownership of the other person's heart. And so, yeah, when I do that, that lets me have the mindset of like, okay, well, what's operating? How could I treat her the way I would treat myself if her heart was my heart? So, yeah, that's kind of the initial thing that sparked, is I started to receive a little bit of that.
Yeah. And you started labeling it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we found our way into something that we call fragment work, which is, I wanted to ask her, I'm like, what piece of you is speaking when you're acting this way? When you're, because I'm not trying to say that, I'm wanting to be attuned to your heightened sensitivity, but I'm not sure what's happening. Why does it feel so intense? And what we ended up uncovering is that, yeah, Allison's got just a has a harder time dealing with like rejection, dealing with feeling like that lack of love makes her want to be avoidant and come out as like,
Well, I'll try to
well,
like adapt and accommodate to my environment the best that I can. So instead, the brattiness was coming out kind of leaky or as me like shutting down. And so I feel like the bratty dynamic was more so developed as a way for me to not shut down when I started to feel sensitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. So so typically it would be to shut down. And what I kind of invited was like, well, what would happen if you didn't shut down? What would you tell me? And I created a really safe space for her to express something. And so, because yeah, I mean, I have had to do a lot of my own work to not shut down as well. So I feel like I
Yeah.
really understood that. And so it was like, well, if you weren't to shut down right now, if you were, let's pretend that you get free reign to say anything you want to me, and I promise it won't change the overall landscape of the security of our relationship. What would you say? And so it naturally came out of her as this kind of playful brattiness.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you don't want me to be like that, then I'm just going to go over here. Then I'm just going to leave. Why would you have me come over if you're just going to be on your phone anyways? Why would you do this if it not, and it came out naturally that way. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
good point.
if
Okay.
And it feels like a flavor of play, like rather than nagging you, being like, why are you always on your phone? Because I could be really closed and like I could be passive aggressive, or I could be just confrontational in a way where my heart is closed, but it allows me to keep my heart open and be really playful and be like, why are you on your phone all the time? You don't want to play? And yeah, it just allows for a different type of expression.
Yeah. Do we want to give an example that's relevant? Because I feel like that one, am I on my phone all the time?
No.
Yeah, okay. What would be the most recent thing you think?
Oh,
Did something
gosh.
happen yesterday or today?
I couldn't pull something off the top of my head.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an invitation, and partially the man has to agree to being able to do this. And I've talked to a lot of men, and even one of my like clients who is like, I would never, like, I don't play those games. I don't do that. I don't want it. No, like I don't agree. And on some level, yeah, that's cool. You don't have to agree to that. Not everyone has to agree to that. I just found myself able to agree to it due to the amount of spaciousness that I have and the perception that I have to like spot what's underneath the expression. So I'm seeing shutting down as something I want to work with and be like, I've decided to be in a relationship with you. And to me, that means I've decided to take some responsibility for your triggers, your childhood wounding, whatever shows up in our relationship. I'm taking responsibility for the fragment of you that needs to speak her mind. And so, yeah, that gives what I kind of found my way into just being like, oh, so this piece of you is just a little brat. And she just wants to be annoying and obnoxious. And that's her way of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And so we don't, it's not all the time. And we kind of give it to each other, if we're being honest. You let me, I also need to be dramatic and act things out in a playful way. And I think at some point, yeah, I was like, you are never going to understand when I talk like this. Like, it's like permission to overly dramatize everything. You are not going to ever agree with me. You just don't have the capacity to understand. And I'll like get on the floor and start rolling around.
And it feels so much better than the alternative.
Which is to shut down, walk
Yeah.
on eggshells.
Yeah. Be leaky in other ways. We just get to address it head on, but it's like a revealing and it keeps the heart open.
I like the revealing. It is revealing. And we created words like for seasons of our relationship. So the first word that we created was bloom, which was just like an invitation to let our natural fun and organic development happen. And then we had like a season, like a ceremony. Something triggered us to like start a new season and pick a new word. And we picked the word secure for the second word. And so we've really been like aiming at a secure relationship style because, yeah, I'm a recovering codependent. She's a recovering codependent. We're both probably recovering narcissists. We have a little bit of that heightened superiority complex, energy where we would like to hide in our own mental intelligence in order to not connect with people when we're feeling lacking in our own security.
Wow, way to nail it there.
Yeah. But that's, labeling.
Yeah.
Labeling is the most powerful technique in a relationship because...
And it feels like the labeling and the fragment work go hand in hand because what we've been able to do is see when a piece of us wants to express something and accurately label it, then it really dissolves most of the charge.
Yeah.
But if we don't let the fragment of ourselves be seen and acted out and label it and love it, then it just gets pent up and it leaks out in other ways and it becomes destructive.
Yeah. So, example today, even we came home from food and I was not particularly satisfied with how her dog is when we arrive. Very anxious, too much pent-up energy. I sometimes get irritated. And I said something, and you started to shut down just a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I remember softening. Like, we had kind of a talk, but then I wanted to try to soften. And at some point, I, it was like, you just want to feel like I'm not picking on him. It seems like I'm being mean to your dog. Seems like I don't care about him. Seems like Charlie just wants some love, and why am I giving him such a hard time? And and then you're like, you know, like it's not. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm able to like enter this fragment space where, yeah, I'm like, oh, like something happened because Allison's natural state is like beauty and joy and love and play and like energizing and even like a muse. She's just like a goddess of fucking yes, you know, just a goddess of yes. If that's not a title, that should be. And so if she shuts down, like what's the point in taking offense to that? What's the point in like demonizing it? Like, I don't know, how can I welcome it in? And so because I can take ownership and welcome her, if you think about maybe the more BDSM part of taking ownership of someone, you're my brat now. Like you're my, you know, like, oh, we're bringing a brat today. Like sometimes I think people play out that dynamic because it's healing. And we found it naturally because our relationship was like calling for it and asking for a little bit of that. So yeah, I'm happy that it's serving, and it's fun to play with, and it's also like a really cool tool to keep the heart open
Yeah.
and be expressive rather than like, because I definitely used to be very avoidant, very dismissive, and a lot of that is because I didn't want to take ownership of my partner. I didn't want to feel like I would normally have looked at a closed off partner and be like, looks like you got some work to do.
Yeah.
Looks like you got some work to open up your heart. And this is one of the most dismissive and like, yeah, I would call it narcissistic things that you can do in a relationship, is tell a person's emotional response that it's their bullshit to deal with, their work. Not if you're in a relationship with them. Unfortunately, I think that a part of the healthy relationship is that you're agreeing to take ownership of some of their fragments, some of the pieces of them that are going to be revealed through being in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
So I get to turn on some
Fatherly.
fatherly holding energy. Fatherly.
Father Zach.
Father Zach. And yeah, you get to turn on like little girl.
Yeah.
And that gives me power over some language, and I get to call you a brat. When you're acting
And
like
I get
one.
to be one.
When we want to be and when we choose
Yeah.
consciously. So
Yeah.
that's the fun part, is that a lot of it is just conscious choice, conscious practices.
Yeah. Yeah, and that any dynamic can really be played out in a healing way if it's consciously chosen and not just the unconscious background, what's playing out in the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps if I'm to concisely pull this into a structure, learn fragments, what piece of your partner's wanting to come out. Can we label it in a way that is creating some separation, that this is a piece of you, this isn't the whole you? Can we meet it with love and dialogue with it at its level? And can we integrate it and choose it consciously? And in that last piece, it looks like a practice.
Yeah.
How can we practice letting this person, this fragment of you, have a voice in a secure way? How can I hold an agreement and a space for it, her, little or big, to come out and have some say and have some fun? So, done?
I think so. First live